I never thought my own parents would uninvite me from Thanksgiving because of something as stupid as embarrassing my sister, but that's exactly what happened, and the crazy part. It wasn't even her who said I embarrassed her. It was her boyfriend, the same guy she's been dating for barely 6 months, the same guy my parents seem to worship now as if he's the second coming of some long, lost saint. When I tell you what he said, what he accused me of doing, you're going to lose it. And before I tell you the whole story, I want you to genuinely think about this. If your family pushed you out of a holiday for something you didn't even do, just because some guy your sister brought home said you were ruining the vibe, would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have done what I did? Because honestly, I still don't know if I went too far. You tell me if I was wrong. So let me take you back to how all this nonsense started, because it didn't just come out of nowhere. It began slowly, with little things, little comments, little jabs, things I brushed off because I wanted to keep peace in the family. My sister, Emily, and I were never super close, but we were the kind of siblings who could joke around, tease each other, hang out during holidays, and complain about our parents together. That kind of bond. But everything shifted the moment she started dating this guy Daniel. That's his name, or as my parents like to call him, such a mature young man, even though he's literally only 1 year older than me. They act like he's some golden gift sent directly from heaven, while I'm the problem child, because I don't laugh at his unfunny jokes or pretend he's the smartest man to walk the planet. The first time I met him, I knew he wasn't my type of person. He had this thing about him, you know, the kind of guy who acts like he's always subtly correcting you, even when he's not saying anything outright. The type who smirks when you're talking, like he already knows he's better, smarter, cooler. That was Daniel, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to be that sibling, the one who hates every boy friend their sister brings home, so I tried to be polite. I tried to be neutral, and for a while that worked. But then came the little digs. He would joke about my job, even though he didn't know a damn thing about it. I work in graphic design. Not some glamorous Hollywood gig, I know, but it's something I love. Daniel would say stuff like, "So you basically just draw all day. Must be nice," with that smirk, and my parents would laugh as if he'd said something clever. Or he'd ask, "Do you ever think about getting a career that's more stable?" As if I was unemployed and living in someone's basement. Meanwhile, Emily never said anything. She would just sit there smiling like none of it bothered her. At first, I shrugged it off, whatever, people are annoying. I don't need everyone to understand what I do. But the more he came around, the worse it got. The comments became more pointed, more personal. He once asked me if I was embarrassed that my younger sister was making more money than me. He said it at a family dinner, in front of my parents, and they laughed. My mother even said, "Well, she is doing very well for herself," as if I asked for commentary. That night, I drove home with my jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd break my teeth. I didn't say anything then either, because I thought maybe I was overreacting. Little did I know that was nothing compared to what was coming. Thanksgiving is huge in my family. It's like our big annual reunion, even though we all live close enough to see each other regularly. My parents go all out. Decorations, table settings, a massive menu, the whole fancy spread. This year was supposed to be special because my parents had invited extended family, some close family friends, and apparently they were excited to show off Emily and her new perfect boyfriend. I wasn't thrilled about spending a whole day in Daniel's presence, but whatever, it's family, it's tradition. About a week before Thanksgiving, my mom called me and said she needed help with the cooking. She said Emily and Daniel were busy and couldn't help prep, so she wanted me there early. I agreed. I always help my mom, it's our thing. But when I showed up, Daniel was already there, not helping, just sitting there drinking coffee with my dad. When I walked in, he raised his eyebrows in that smug, punchable way and said, "Oh hey, look who finally made it." My dad laughed. I ignored him. I went into the kitchen to help my mom chop vegetables, and while we were working, Emily walked in with Daniel behind her. She had that look, like she was trying way too hard to be cheerful. I could tell something was off. She said, "So, Daniel told me something, and we thought we should all talk about it." My stomach instantly dropped. I knew it wasn't going to be good. My mom put down her knife and said, "What happened?" Emily looked at Daniel like she needed him to take over, so he stepped forward with this dramatic seriousness and said, "I think we have a problem." Then he said it. He claimed that I had been harassing him, his word, not teasing, not arguing. He said I'd been harassing him every time we saw each other. He said I made him feel unwelcome and uncomfortable, and that I was making it hard for him to be part of this family. Can you believe that? I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. I literally thought he was pulling some awkward prank. But no, he doubled down. He said I've been intentionally belittling him because I'm jealous of their relationship. Jealous of him, of Emily, of what exactly? The fact that he can't go 5 minutes without making some condescending comment. My mom's face immediately changed. She went from calm to stern in seconds. She asked me, "Is this true?" As if she was already convinced it was. I told them exactly what happened, that he was the one who kept making unnecessary comments about my job, that he was the one who always said things to provoke a reaction, that I never started anything, but he shook his head and said, "See, she's twisting the narrative again." Again, as if there was a first time, and the crazy thing, my parents believed him. Emily stood there with her arms crossed like she was waiting for me to apologize. My mom said, "We want this holiday to be peaceful and we don't want you causing issues." That was the moment I realized I was on my own. It was 3 against 1. No one was listening to me. No one cared. I didn't argue. I just said fine and left. I needed air. I needed to get away before I snapped. I went home thinking everything would blow over. Maybe they were just caught up in the moment. Maybe Emily would call and apologize. But instead, the next day, my mom texted me, not even a call, a text, and it said, "After discussing things further, we think it would be best if you sat this Thanksgiving out so things don't escalate. We love you and we'll bring you leftovers." Leftovers. Like I was some neighbor they were inviting. I stared at that text for so long. I felt heat rising up my neck, that choking, suffocating mix of anger and hurt that hits you all at once. I couldn't believe it. My own family uninviting me over a lie, over some guy who didn't even know us a year ago, over someone who clearly enjoyed stirring drama. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. Thanksgiving rolled around and I stayed home. I didn't cook anything special, didn't watch any movies. I just sat there scrolling social media like a ghost. And then, of course, they posted pictures, happy family photos. Emily and Daniel smiling like they were the king and queen of the event. My parents writing captions like, "So blessed for our wonderful family." I wasn't in a single picture, not one mention of me, nothing. Then the real story started unfolding. The day after Thanksgiving, I got a message from someone I didn't expect. It was Emily's boyfriend's best friend, someone I had met once briefly. He sent me a DM saying, "Hey, I think you should know what Daniel said about you yesterday." My heart dropped. I asked what he meant, and he said, "He was bragging that he convinced your whole family to uninvite you. He said it was easy. He said you were too full of yourself and needed to be put in your place. He even said he wanted to see how far he could push your sister and parents." I sat there frozen. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. And then he said something worse, something that flipped everything upside down. He said Daniel wasn't just bragging, he was drunk. And in his drunken bragging, he told some people at the gathering that embarrassing me and isolating me was step 1 of the plan. His actual words, step 1 of what? Why was he planning anything? What was he trying to do? Before I continue, pause for a moment and really imagine this. You're sitting alone, already hurt and confused because your own family kicked you out for Thanksgiving, and suddenly someone tells you the guy responsible has a plan. And that isolating, You was only the beginning. What would you think? What would you do? Because that's the exact moment I realized I had a choice to make. Should I stay quiet and let things get worse, or should I confront everything head on before this man drove a wedge into my family that couldn't be undone? And before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you what I did in response, I want you to pause and comment what you would have done in my shoes. When I got that message, the one saying Daniel was bragging about isolating me as step one of the plan, something in me shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It wasn't even confusion. It was this heavy, ice-cold realization that everything I had brushed off, every smug comment, every backhanded remark, every little moment that made me think he didn't like me, wasn't random. It wasn't harmless teasing. It was deliberate, coordinated. Someone doesn't call something step one unless they're following a blueprint, and who has a blueprint for someone else's family unless they're trying to manipulate them. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room replaying every moment I had ever had with Daniel, every flag I ignored, every time my parents pressured me to be nicer to him, every time Emily looked at him like he hung the moon. The dots connected in my head like pieces of a puzzle snapping into place. I realized the one thing I had never wanted to admit. My sister was in trouble, and my parents were too blinded by their obsession with perfect son-in-law vibes to see it. The next day, instead of waiting for things to escalate, I decided to get answers, not from my parents, not from Emily, from the one person who had reached out, Daniel's friend, the guy who messaged me. His name was Marcus. I wrote back asking if he could tell me everything Daniel had said word for word. He sent long voice notes, panicked ones, honestly. He said Daniel had been drunk, cocky, running his mouth, saying stuff like, "It's crazy how much control I already have. Emily listens to everything I say. Her parents adore me. That sister of hers, though, she's the only one who looks at me like she's not buying it. So I just have to get rid of her, get rid of me." He said it laughing, like it was a strategy game, like I wasn't a person, like I was some obstacle he needed to eliminate. He even said, once the parents choose sides a couple more times, she'll stop coming around. Eventually, Emily will stop talking to her too. Marcus told me he had been uncomfortable listening to it, but didn't know what to say at the time. He said he'd been thinking about it all night and didn't want to stay quiet anymore. I thanked him, genuinely. Because if he hadn't said anything, I don't know how far things would have gone. I don't know how long Daniel would have spent picking my family apart like he was dismantling furniture, one screw at a time. But hearing all this made one thing clear: staying quiet wasn't going to protect anyone. I needed to talk to Emily, not my parents, Emily, because if Daniel was isolating me, he was isolating her too. She just didn't see it yet. So I drove to her apartment. No warning, no text, no heads up. I wasn't giving Daniel time to prepare some performance or twist the narrative again. When I knocked, I half expected him to open the door. But Emily did, and she looked genuinely surprised to see me. Not annoyed, not defensive surprised. Her hair was messy, like she'd been crying or arguing, and her face looked tired. I asked if we could talk. She hesitated, but stepped aside and let me in. The second I walked inside, I felt this weird energy in the room. Something was off. It wasn't just the tension between us. It was like the place felt heavy, the air felt dense like the aftermath of a storm. I didn't see Daniel anywhere, so I asked where he was. She said he had gone out for a bit. Her voice was shaky. That was the moment I knew I had to tread carefully, because something bigger was happening here. I sat down and said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen with an open mind." She folded her arms and looked at me like she was bracing herself. I told her everything Marcus had told me. Every word, every bragging comment, every manipulation, every step one. At first, Emily didn't react. She just stared at me. But as I kept talking, her eyes started to glaze over like she was disconnecting. And then she whispered, "He said those things." She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She sounded broken, I told her I wouldn't come here lying. I told her I had nothing to gain. I told her I loved her even when she didn't choose me. She rubbed her forehead and said, "We got into a fight last night. He told me that you were trying to turn the family against him. He said you've been jealous since the day I introduced you to. He said you were dangerous, dangerous." I couldn't believe it. This man wasn't just manipulating. He was outright fabricating entire narratives. I asked her if she believed him. She didn't answer. She just said, "He gets really intense sometimes. He says things that don't feel right." She took a shaky breath and added, "Last week, he told me he didn't like when I talked to Mom without telling him. He said communication in relationships should be controlled. Controlled, the exact word she used made my stomach drop. That's when I knew Emily had been slipping into something toxic, something she didn't even fully recognize yet. I asked her if she was okay. She said she didn't know. She said she'd been feeling overwhelmed and didn't want to admit it to anyone. Then, quietly, she said something I'll never forget. "I thought you hated him. I thought that's why you were distant." I told her I never hated him. I just didn't trust him. There's a difference. She nodded slowly, like she was realizing that maybe she should have listened sooner. We talked for a long time, longer than we had talked in months, and then the front door opened. Daniel walked in. The temperature in the room changed instantly. His eyes landed on me and darkened. Not surprised. Not confused, angry, the kind of anger that doesn't explode, it simmers. He asked, "What are you doing here?" His voice was calm, too calm, like he was forcing it. Emily stepped between us slightly, like she was trying to physically block the tension. I said I came to talk to my sister. That's when he smiled, that slow, sarcastic smile he always had, and said, "You weren't invited." No apology, no pretending, no masking. The mask was off, and he looked at me like I was something he scraped off his shoe. "Emily," said Daniel, "we need to talk." His eyes flicked to her, and for a split second, just 1 second, I saw something in his face, annoyance, irritation, something colder. He said, "About what?" Emily swallowed and said carefully, "I know what you said at Thanksgiving. I know what you told your friends." He didn't even flinch. He just looked at her and said, "And who told you that?" Not even trying to deny it. Just trying to identify the leak in his plan. I said, "It doesn't matter who told her. What matters is what you said." He turned toward me slowly, like he was trying to intimidate me with silence. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "You were never supposed to be part of this family. Not really. You're too emotional, too reactive, too weak." Weak. That word hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't a comment about my career or my personality. It was him revealing how he actually saw me, as someone he could push out, someone disposable. Emily's face went pale. She whispered, "Daniel, what are you talking about?" He shrugged and said, "I told you before. Your sister is always trying to compete. I was just helping you see it. Helping." Like isolating me was an act of charity. That's when I realized Daniel wasn't just manipulative. He genuinely believed his own lies. He lived in some twisted world where everything he did was justified. Things escalated from there. Emily asked him straight out, "Did you tell my parents that she harassed you?" He didn't hesitate. He said yes, just yes, no explanation, no apology, no shame. Emily choked out, "Why would you lie?" He shrugged again and said, "Because it worked." He said it proudly, like he wanted credit for being clever. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I stepped toward him and said, "You're done. You don't get to come into my family and tear it apart just because you're insecure about who you are." He laughed, full on laughed, and then said, "Your family listens to me more than they listen to you. That's not my fault." Emily started crying, not soft tears, real gut-wrenching crying. She said, "I trusted you." Daniel turned to her and said, "And you should. I'm the only one who actually cares about you." That's when she backed away from him. That tiny movement said everything. I told her, "You don't have to stay with someone who isolates you from everyone who loves you." Daniel snapped, "Stay out of this." But Emily looked at him, really looked at him, and said, "No, you stay out." Her voice cracked, but it was the strongest thing I've ever heard her say. Daniel tried to control the situation again, saying, "You're making a mistake. She's manipulating you right now." Emily shook her head and said, "No, you are." And then she said the words I wasn't expecting. "I think you should leave." He looked stunned, like he didn't think she was capable of choosing anyone over him. He tried to argue, saying she was emotional, confused, being influenced, but she didn't budge. She said, "Get out." Daniel left, not happily, not quietly. He slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Emily collapsed onto the couch and started sobbing. I sat next to her and held her until she could breathe again. She kept saying, "I'm so stupid." And I told her she wasn't stupid. She was manipulated. There's a difference. After she calmed down, we talked about everything. She admitted Daniel had slowly been pulling her away from the family, telling her I didn't support her, telling her our parents were too controlling, telling her she needed to rely on him more. He had been planting seeds for months, and she hadn't seen it because he packaged it as love. I stayed with her the rest of the night. We talked, cried, binged a stupid show for comfort. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had my sister back. The next morning, Emily called our parents and told them everything. I wasn't there for the call, but she told me later they were shocked. Embarrassed, defensive at first, but when she told them the exact things he said, the bragging, the manipulation, the step one, they couldn't argue. They invited me over to talk. And for once, I didn't feel like a child walking into a courtroom. I felt like someone who deserved to be heard. When I arrived, they apologized. My mom almost cried. My dad said he felt sick realizing they had chosen a stranger over their own child. I didn't forgive them immediately. I'm not a saint. But I said I appreciated them listening this time. Emily told them she dumped Daniel for good. My parents, of course, tried to pretend they never really liked him, which made me laugh inside. As for Daniel, he tried to contact Emily multiple times. She blocked him everywhere. He tried to message me too, calling me names, blaming me for ruining his life. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. His mask was off now, and Emily saw everything she needed to see. Thanksgiving might have been ruined for me, but something better happened afterward. We rebuilt our family with clearer eyes, stronger boundaries, better communication. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the outsider anymore. If you were on my side through this mess, like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me your final thoughts in the comments. I'll see you all in the next story.